This has to be a mistake, right? The guard's question, sharp as a blade, sliced the soft hush of the morning. He stood there, broad-shouldered, immovable in his immaculate blue uniform, as though he could hold back the tide behind the gates of Remembrance Hill Cemetery with the weight of his authority alone. His partner, younger yet already world-weary, gave a quick, mocking grin on cue. My hands, too, told stories, scarred, calloused, trembling ever so slightly as I gripped the lapels of the only suit I owned. The dark fabric was thin and frayed, but it was clean, and it was enough. I stood stock still, not bothering to answer the guard's taunt. My eyes found the far hills, where the flags drooped low with grief, and I let the silence speak for me. That silence sat heavy in the space between us as the second guard advanced, boots grinding on the gravel like thunder in a distant storm. "Sir, this service is private. You need a pass for General Whitaker's funeral. Invitation only. Unless you show credentials, you'll need to leave." Their words hung in the air, almost sour. It struck me as tragic. Here, at the resting place of so many fallen, where respect should rule, suspicion and protocols ruled instead. To them, I was only someone's confused grandfather, muddled and lost, turned away from the ceremony meant for heroes. They didn't see a lifetime weighed in sacrifice. They saw no proof of honor, only absence. As more black sedans with government plates rolled up, curiosity trickled across their passengers' faces, glances filled with pity, annoyance, and something colder. Distance. I waited. Waiting never scared me. I'd learned the art in trenches, under jungle leaves, in endless hospital corridors. Stillness was my friend. Guard Jenkins, his impatience almost theatrical, shifted closer. "Look, old man," he barked. "We can see the funeral processions coming around the bend. This is your last warning. If you just need to visit a gravesite, the public entrance is a mile around the hill." He pointed, not really caring where. "Move, or we move you." I let a breath settle the weight in my chest. My reply came soft but solid, the kind of voice shaped by loss and memory. "I'm here because the general wanted me here." His partner, Corporal Hart, gave a huffing laugh, shaking his head. "Sure you are. You and General Whitaker." "With all due respect, sir, General Whitaker was a 4-star. He had presidents on speed dial. He didn't just invite anyone, invitation or not." The words felt like a slap, wrapped in formality, edged with contempt. A small crowd gathered at a respectful distance, officers in dress uniforms, dignitaries, family bundled in black. Their whispers were like a low wind, uncomfortable, curious, unable to look away. I could feel the embarrassment prickling at my skin, but I let the wounds show. All my life I'd been overlooked, and mostly I'd liked it that way. Just not today. "My name's Samuel Reese," I said, my voice steady, eyes unwavering. "Just pass along that Samuel Reese is here." Jenkins leaned in with a sneer. "Samuel Reese, huh? Right. And I'm the Secretary of Defense. Names are useless unless you've got paperwork, old fella." He jabbed a gloved finger at my chest. "You've got no ribbons, no medals, no papers. As far as I'm concerned, you're a trespasser at a restricted event. Don't touch that." My answer startled him, but arrogance is a stubborn shield. The guards, emboldened by their officer's order, tightened their grip on my arms. There was a gasp from the assembled mourners, a ripple of shock at the public humiliation of an old man, grief-stricken and desperate to say farewell. For a moment, all I could feel was the old ache of shame burn through my cheeks. I stared at the ground and let them believe what they would. My only crime was loving a friend enough to show up on the day that truly mattered. Yet not every soul in the crowd was content to watch in silence. At the edge of the onlookers, a young Army captain named Lewis had witnessed the whole confrontation, tension building in his jaw. He'd served his time overseas and seen enough to know the difference between false bravado and the resolute calm that only those who'd survived the worst could carry. Something gnawed at him. The way I took those taunts, the way I stood, steady as old stone. Something about me rang truer than all the medals in that cemetery. Directly challenging the guards would be reckless, dangerous for his career, a mess for the command. So Captain Lewis made a quick choice. Drawing back, he fished his phone from his uniform and thumbed a message to the one man he knew who could change the course of this day. Colonel Everett, General Whitaker's closest aide for 2 decades. With his back to the crowd, Lewis's message was urgent. "Sir, it's Captain Lewis. Sorry to bother you. With the procession starting, there's an issue at the main gate. Security's detaining an elderly man. He says his name's Samuel Reese. He's wearing a strange battered pin on his lapel. Looks like a jagged bit of metal, nothing official." A heavy pause answered him, thicker than any reprimand. Then, finally, the colonel's voice, transformed. The frustration gone, replaced by a note of urgency that rattled even Lewis's nerves. "What did you say his name was?" "Repeat that." Captain Lewis drew a breath. "Samuel Reese, sir." A click, a murmured curse, and then the line went dead. Lewis twisted back toward the gate, alarm rising in his chest. The guards were now pulling harder at my arms, steering me toward a dark sedan meant for the unwanted, for those they decided had no business among heroes. Inside a white tent braced against the gentle hill, Colonel Everett stared at his silent phone, an ashen pallor creeping up his face as realization struck. He snapped at his aide, his voice cut sharp and decisive. "Get me General Hoffman." "Now." "On the radio. Interrupt whatever you have to. Now." He reached for a battered envelope in his desk, the seal already broken, the paper worn soft by years of handling. General Whitaker's final letter. The words flickered in his mind. "If a man named Samuel Reese ever comes for me, give him anything he asks. He is owed a debt none of us could ever repay." The aide hurried back, breathless, extending a radio. "General Hoffman is on, sir." Colonel Everett barely paused. "General, code Shepard at the main gate. Yes, Shepard is active. It's not a drill." For a heartbeat, stunned silence pulsed from the radio, then the general's voice stripped of all ceremony. "Understood. Halt everything. I'm coming." Back at the gate, the lieutenant was soaking in his small triumph, pride swelling as he watched me. Shoulders heavy, head low, hands locked by 2 guards. He strolled over, wanting to deliver one last blow. Leaning in, his voice dropped to a sneering whisper only I could hear. "You have one final chance, old man. Walk away now with your dignity, such as it is, or spend the rest of General Whitaker's funeral in a police holding cell. I'll see to it personally. Maybe get you checked for delusions." The words stung, not from truth, but from the inhumanity they carried. A gut punch designed to flatten what little pride remained. I looked at him, sorrow deep in my bones, and wondered what might have happened if he'd learned respect before today. Suddenly, a low vibration carried through the ground. People sensed it before they heard it. A convoy of 3 black SUVs screamed up the main road, gravel spraying as they halted in formation at the gates, urgency replacing every trace of funeral hush. The officers froze, hands dropping at their sides as engine doors opened in perfect sync, and a squad of highly decorated army men poured out, chests blooming with medals, presence crackling with authority. Out stepped Colonel Everett, his face thunderous. The final SUV opened, slowly, purposefully, and General Hoffman emerged, 4 silver stars radiant on his shoulders. His presence swallowed the sounds of wind and footsteps, silencing every witness. He didn't bother acknowledging the leering lieutenant or the gaping guards. His eyes found mine, and in that instant, the mask of command melted into something like reverence as he approached, step by deliberate step, stopping just inches from me. The crowd held its breath, the whole world narrowing to this meeting at the cemetery gates. General Hoffman stood before me, his posture flawless, the weight of command settling on his sturdy shoulders. In the shimmering hush, he drew himself to his fullest, then raised his right hand in a crisp, unwavering salute. The gesture was more than regulation. It was reverence. Respect paid from the nation's highest-ranking general to an old man in a suit that had seen better decades. His voice rang out, deep and unmistakable, echoing for all to hear. "Mr. Reese, it is an honor, sir." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The lieutenant, caught completely off guard, scrambled for words. "General, please, I am so sorry. This man was, well, he was causing a disturbance. He lacked credentials. I was only doing my duty." His tone, so sure of itself moments before, now fumbled and shrank before the general's icy glare. General Hoffman didn't lower his salute or spare the young officer pity. "That man," the general thundered, "has more right to stand on this soil than any of us, more than even I do." He turned slightly, addressing the assembled crowd, who pressed closer, their curiosity a tidal surge. "Let me be clear for all who stand here," Hoffman declared, his words carving into memory. "You see an old man, a civilian perhaps. But I see a legend. This, Samuel Reese, is known to some by another name, the Shepherd. The history books may never record his deeds, but the men of the old Special Recovery Group, those who served on the edge of the world, know him as a savior." A stunned gasp fluttered through the mourners. The name was whispered and repeated, riding the wind. The Shepherd, a phantom told of in hushed tones by the men who'd survived when no hope remained. "He wasn't a soldier in the way you think," the general continued, voice swelling with constrained emotion. "He was a medic, a pilot, a guide, and when the situation demanded, as fearless a warrior as any ever honored here. He never wore rank, never took any medal. Every award offered him, he turned down with a shake of the head, because, he said, the greatest reward was seeing his men return home breathing. If you're wondering why he bears no glittering medals on his chest, it's because he believed the measure of a man is in his actions, not in what hangs from his lapel." He turned the focus to me. I could see the gratitude brimming in his eyes, an unspoken thanks that needed no words. "In the spring of 1969, deep in a foreign jungle, a helicopter fell behind enemy lines. 12 men feared lost. Among them, a young captain, Jacob Whitaker. For 3 desperate days, those men were surrounded, outnumbered, their hope waning with every falling sun. In the blackness of that third night, the Shepherd came." Hoffman's tone dropped to a reverent hush, every syllable weighted. "Alone, through enemy patrols, through the wild, he carried the wounded to safety, again and again, until at last every last survivor had crossed to life." He paused, then let out a breath he'd been holding, as if releasing a chapter of the past few could even imagine. "Captain Whitaker, the man we lay to rest today, survived because of Samuel Reese. Because of him, sons went home to their mothers, fathers to their children. That is the highest valor I have ever witnessed or known." A tide of awe swept over the crowd. Soldiers, young and old alike, straightened and slowly, as if guided by an ancient compass, raised their hands in salute, one by one, until even those in civilian dress stood at attention. The line of respect built, pillar by pillar, like an invisible monument to sacrifice. The general's sharp gaze bored into the trembling lieutenant and the 2 guards, who stood now as witnesses to their own folly. Hoffman's voice went low, icy and exact. "You ask this man for an invitation. Remember this. Every grave on these hills is his invitation. Every flag flying at half-mast, his welcome. You demanded medals, his scars, his resolve, his mercy. Those are medals you can't pin to fabric. Your job is more than enforcing orders. It's knowing when history stands before you and saluting it. Today you failed not just at your post, but at the very heart of what it means to serve." My breath came slow but deep. General Hoffman focused his eyes on their faces, letting the weight of his rebuke settle. "You will report to my aid. Deliver your names and your units. At dawn you'll be in my office for a lesson, on respect, on discernment, and on honor. Do you understand?" Their reply was a hushed chorus, barely above a mumble. "Yes, General." The shame on their faces settled like dust in the sunlight. As the general's fierce rebuke faded into the quiet, I gently rested my hand on his polished sleeve. "Marshal," I said softly, using his first name in front of all those rank-and-file witnesses. "They're only young." They were following orders the way they understood them. "Let it go." The general's hardened features softened at once, the stern mask slipping to reveal something much more human, regret, and an old warmth. He dipped his head, acquiescent. Now, all eyes found me. I turned to the young lieutenant, who seemed almost smaller in that moment, the arrogance shaken from his bones. There was no anger in my voice, only a quiet instruction, patient as spring rain. "Listen, son," I told him. "Your uniform is a symbol. It's not respect itself. That's something you build day by how you treat people. Sometimes the greatest among us are invisible. Sometimes those who gave most, who sacrificed most, wear no badge at all. Just remember that." The memory of where that battered pin came from broke through then, sharp, vivid, and rich with meaning. It didn't crash over me with anguish as before, but gently, like a story retold 100 times, each word more precious. I was back, years ago, in a dim field tent that stank of antiseptic and fear and mud. Across from me lay Captain Jacob Whitaker, his leg wrapped in rough bandages, eyes burning with the agony of both pain and gratitude. In his blood-caked fist, he clutched a twisted piece of metal, the same shrapnel they dug from my back as I lay battered on the cot beside him. He pressed it into my palm. His voice was tight and rough with emotion. "They'll recommend me for a Silver Star for that day." "But Sam, it wasn't me. The whole thing belongs to you. I don't have the words or the authority to make them see what it cost. So, I want you to take this. It's ugly, and it comes with pain, but it's yours. Let it be a reminder, so neither of us ever forgets what's owed or the price paid. That little hunk of metal, ugly and pitted, weighed more than gold. It was forged not in a mint, but in a fire of chaos and selflessness. A reminder that there are debts never measured in medals or rank, only in lives given back from the edge." The present snapped back into focus. Without another word, General Hoffman placed his hand under my elbow and guided me gently through the iron gates. The crowd parted for me, lines of saluting soldiers and blinking civilians making a silent corridor. My old legs shook just a little, not from fear or weakness, but from the storm of gratitude and memory that washed over me as I walked among them. We didn't stop with the regular mourners. The general led me to the very front row. Among the grieving family of Jacob Whitaker, faces I'd never met looked at me with tears in their eyes, some of them reaching for my hand, others offering a grateful embrace. A little girl hugged my knees. "Thank you for giving us our granddad all these years." Their words broke something in me, and I felt the strange ache of pride and loneliness mingling together. I sat in that first pew, a silent witness to the farewell of a man I'd once risked everything for. The eulogies, the prayers, the rifles firing in salute, all settled over me like a healing balm. For a moment, I could picture the long-lost boys I'd watched over in the brush, ghosts now blowing like leaves between the stones, smiling in quiet benediction. But repercussions from what had happened at the gate were swift. General Hoffman did not pursue retribution with the fire of humiliation. There were no public punishments, no ruins of careers. Instead, he personally oversaw the reassignment and retraining of the young lieutenant and his 2 guards. He made sure the lessons from the day would not be wasted or lost to time. Hoffman started a new training program for security personnel, one that emphasized not just rules and procedures, but history, empathy, and situational wisdom. Soldiers would learn to look beyond uniforms, to ask, who stands before us, and what stories might we be missing? The course found its name quickly, the Reese Protocol. Word of the incident and its lessons spread fast throughout the armed forces. Young recruits heard about the stubborn old man at the cemetery gates. It became a parable told in classrooms and briefing rooms, a quiet warning about humility and the dangers of hasty judgment. The months passed, seasons wheeled through their changes, washing the dust of controversy away. The memory of that day lingered in quiet ways, sometimes in the respectful nod of a junior officer, sometimes in the way a gate sentry paused to look an old visitor in the eye with fresh gratitude. As autumn bled into winter, the humbled lieutenant found himself stationed at a remote checkpoint, no longer anywhere near the prestige and ceremonial weight of Remembrance Hill. His days were marked by routine, his nights by a restlessness he could not shake. He was older now, not by years, but by what he'd learned, his sharpness replaced by a softer, more thoughtful air. One cold, drizzling Tuesday, during a brief break at a greasy diner near the base, he sat alone, nursing a mug of lukewarm coffee. The door chimed, and in shuffled a familiar silhouette. I stepped inside, shaking rain from my old jacket, and settled on a cracked vinyl stool at the counter. My bones were tired, but my spirit was light. I ordered a coffee, eyes drifting to the steamy window, lost in memory. For a long moment the young officer watched me from his booth. His heart pounded behind his ribs, warring tides of shame, gratitude, and the echo of lessons hard-earned. Rain beat steadily against the window behind him. He seemed rooted to his seat, uncertain, fiddling with the corner of his napkin while his lunch grew cold. The bell over the door had barely stopped ringing, and already his mind raced with what to say, if anything. Words seemed both too much and not enough. At the counter, I felt his gaze, felt the weight of that unspoken apology that had trailed me through countless miles and haunted many a sleepless night for others. I didn't turn, but I didn't need to. Some lessons take time to settle, some silences speak loudest of all. Finally, slow and unsure, the young man pressed a $10 bill into his palm. With deliberate steps he crossed the tiles until he stood beside me, not a lieutenant now nor an enforcer of rules, but just a young man searching for absolution. His voice, when it came, was hoarse with humility, almost reverent. "For the coffee, sir." He hesitated, eyes searching mine for judgment or anger, but finding only something softer. "And for the lesson." "Thank you." I studied him, seeing not just the stiff uniform or squared shoulders, but the humanity underneath, the change stitched into his bearing. There was no need for grand speeches or public reconciliation. I simply offered a nod, a quiet smile creasing my weathered face. "Stay safe, son," I told him, blessing and forgiveness folded into the words. He nodded back, understanding the weight and grace in our exchange. Tucking his hands into his jacket, he slipped out of the diner and back into the gray drizzle, leaving me behind in the humming quiet. I sat with my coffee, letting the warmth seep into my hands and the comfort of closure rest in my chest. Days like these, you come to understand the heart of true service. It's not in the clatter of medals or salutes snapped perfect and sharp. Heroism I'd learned and lived is quiet, a choice made when no one is looking, when recognition is unlikely, and the only witness is your own conscience. Old bones and faded suits may not shine beneath the lights of ceremony, but in those quiet, unnoticed corners, real valor grows brighter for being unsung. The story of the gate, of that morning, and the lesson branded into the hearts of all who saw it, continued to ripple outwards. The Reese Protocol became legend, a phrase that meant something richer than just a process. Respect is a living thing, earned daily and given without rank. It became a warning and a hope, a tale told from cadet to captain, a reminder that behind every pair of tired eyes, there might be an untold story, a debt unseen. I returned to Remembrance Hill over the years, sometimes invited, sometimes alone. Each visit, the sentries greeted me not with suspicion or commands, but with a tilt of the head and a quiet salute. And on those walks among the rows of stone, I'd see new faces, young, old, families marking the passage of time. They'd sometimes ask for stories, and I'd share, never the ones about medals, always the ones about people, the ones about loyalty, kindness, sacrifice, and forgiveness. As for Captain Lewis, the one who called for help that day. He rose quietly through the ranks, his reputation for judgment and compassion earning him respect wherever he went. Every year on the anniversary of General Whitaker's passing, he'd send me a small note, a simple thank you, and a photograph from wherever duty took him. I kept them all in a little wooden box alongside that crooked piece of metal, the pin that bore more weight than any official honor ever could. The world moves ever forward, generations shifting, uniforms changing, new rules written and rewritten. Yet some stories, hard-won, quietly lived, don't fade. They echo and instruct, long after the crowds and color guards have vanished, long after the flags are folded and the bugle's last notes are still. If you've listened to my story this far, know this. Heroism is often hidden in plain sight. It's there, in the quiet acts that never seek attention. It flourishes every day, between strangers casting a glance of kindness, or a soldier pausing to ask an old man's name. May we always remember to look closer, to see truly, and to cherish those who walk among us, humble, unsung, and brave. If this account of service and second chances moved you, share it with another. Like this video, subscribe for more stories of valor and quiet courage, and remember, sometimes the greatest heroes wear not a uniform, but the scars and spirit of their deeds.